wanted to do a theme for this particular workshop because it really wants to go back to the evolution of how recruiting has changed over the years. And I really wanted to bring that to light, and the way recruiting has changed and the way that people are now finding talent really is going to determine how you're going to do your career search, how you're going to search for jobs. And people or candidates or job seekers don't understand how these changes do affect the way they actually find jobs today. So I did want to point out how recruiting has evolved and how it's changed, and that's why I have this timeline as pretty much the forefront of the workshop. We will go back into this timeline later on in the presentation. I first do an overview. If you're not familiar with Career Innovations, we're a staffing and recruiting firm. We are pretty much a boutique headhunting firm that we help out with positions that are pretty much hard to fill. We're a referral-based firm. We find a lot of our candidates through referrals and networking. We do use very innovative technology to find top talent. One of the things that we do besides these workshops, we do HR and job seeking training workshops for employers, far as compensation benchmarking, referral retention workshops. And the reason why we put this together, because we get resumes, on a daily and weekly basis, and we are not physically able to help every single person that comes across our desk. But we wanted to put together some type of tool that we can help, the people that are looking for work that we may not necessarily be able to place. So that's why we decided to put together our weekly Q&A sessions. Today's quote, what I think that everyone will learn from this workshop, I think it pertains to change. And I say people change for two reasons. Either they learn enough that they want to, or they've been hurt enough that they have to. So we're going to talk about some of the changes that's taken place in the recruiting industry. We're also going to talk about some changes that you may have to implement in your entire job search. And then we're going to go into the questions that were asked prior to the workshop. Now, as you see, that's a picture of me, and I am an avid skydiver, so that's me actually finishing up a jump. So. Okay, let's take a look at the evolution of the change, and we're going to look at the years that's happened so far, and we've gone back pretty much 30 years, from 84 to 94 to 2004 up until today. And when I think of 2004, there's no way I think of that as a decade ago, because most people, when they think of a decade, they're thinking of the 90s. And I'm like, no, we're still in the 2000s when we think of 10 years ago. But the evolution of the entire recruiting and hiring process has changed. As we all remember, or if we're old enough to remember, before the internet was even invented, before there was Google, before there was Facebook or LinkedIn, people just used to put jobs in the newspaper, and that was the way that they found a lot of the candidates they were looking for, was just by posting them in the newspaper. Then we evolved to more face-to-face. Then now the internet in 2004, probably earlier than that, came about, but I don't think people were really using it as a recruiting tool up to, I say, about a decade or so ago. They started to really implement the internet as a way to find candidates, a way to find people that were not, either accessible through newspapers, weren't reading newspapers. And you remember in this particular age, newspapers were coming obsolete. The print industry was actually becoming obsolete. A lot of publishing companies went out of business, because the internet has evolved and taken over a lot of the publications that you see online now. So once they figured out, well, people are now more so plugged in than ever, this is a great platform to start sourcing candidates and start meeting people that potentially can bring value to our organization. And then we have the social media that came after that, your Facebooks, your LinkedIns, your Googles, your Pinterest, all those things that came afterwards, not only to entertain us, because a lot of these are a form of entertainment and also engagement, but also to actually bring in talent. So this is something that they looked at. And you also have to remember how this is targeted towards you. Recruiting firms as well as direct employers have now found a way to tailor different ads, based on the cookies in your computer to market directly towards you, either as a consumer or as a job seeker. And you have to be aware of what they're using to find you. And you also have to figure out, how can I use what they're using to find me to also a way for what I can use to find them, or at least put myself on an even playing field. And a lot of people aren't doing that as of now. Employers are looking for more mobile savvy candidates. They're looking for people that are in the know. And I know some candidates that I work with that do not have a web presence at all. And some people may find that as good. You know what? I'm not online. You can Google me. You won't find me. In some ways, that could actually hinder yourself. That can hinder your entire job search, because employers are now online. If you're not have some type of presence online, you really are going to miss out on an opportunity that may be tailored to you. So you definitely want to look at having a web presence and putting yourself in front of decision makers this way, because times have changed. And we're also going to be looking at how the resume itself has changed. So when we talk about what's changed, we're talking about technology and transparency. A recent study with Career Builder, a report finds that 77% of full-time employees or full-time workers are either looking for a new job, or they're open to a career change somewhere this year, 2014. And employers are more than ever investing in the social media as part of their recruiting process. A study was actually done by JobBite, which is an online recruiting website. And I don't know if you've applied for jobs. A lot of platforms are now using JobSite as their ATS, which is their applicant tracking system. And it showed that 55% of employers said that they plan to increase the investment in social recruiting. So we have 87% of them already using LinkedIn. And we also have 95% hired a new employee from using LinkedIn or some effort from LinkedIn. And we're not even talking about Facebook or Twitter. We're just talking about LinkedIn. And I said 95%. That's almost 100. So 95% of employers have some way, shape, or form have implemented LinkedIn in their recruiting process. So the other 5%, I don't know, but I know that 95%, the 5%, may be, family-owned businesses where they don't see the need of using LinkedIn, but they also are saying that due to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they're showing that 85% of career opportunities are going unadvertised. And that's an important number, because a lot of recruiting professionals like myself, if you go to my website now, and shame on me for this, you'll probably see some past postings that that I'm either still looking for, or they're on hold. And I may have some active posts, though I do have some active posts. They're not even posted on my website, because I find that by the time I post it, I've already could have 2 or 3 people in the pipeline just by headhunting. And that's how I operate. I find that most of the people that I reach out to don't even know Career Innovations exists, so they're highly unlikely to I guess stumble upon my job posting per se. So most of the candidates I find, I have to headhunt anyway. So I'm not saying the job posting isn't useful. It definitely is useful for a company that's a household name. Unfortunately, Career Innovations haven't got there yet. So in saying that, there's a lot of positions that you're not going to see online. There's a lot of hiring managers that have already have put on their calendar or already made budget to hire for a particular position that they haven't posted yet, but they may still be looking out for that particular type of talent, but it may not be online. How would they be able to know that you're able to represent or be able to do this particular type of work if you have no visible online presence, especially if 95% of employers are now some way, shape, or form online? Transparency is king. Technology also allows you to look more like a human. They can put a face with a name. They can actually look at some of the accomplishments you've done versus just a resume that says I've done it. Technology far as LinkedIn and other forms of technology. I know people that do articles of interest, that blog, that have some type of portfolio that's online that people have recommended, that can also be as proof to say that I'm not only telling you I can do this, I have other people that have co-signed on my abilities as well. That's what technology does. It gives that transparency. So that's one thing that you need to look at as well. And the resume itself is more data driven. And I want to say employers receive hundreds, sometimes thousands of resumes. Many cannot reply to every single person that applies to their position. What employers are now doing, they're actually relying on either mathematical algorithms that target keyword combinations. And what this does, it can actually predict whether a candidate has the ability to do the job or how likely they're able to fit in culturally. That's scary that they're depending on technology for all that. There's people out there that may not have the right combination of keywords that are being overlooked. I totally understand that, but these are the rules to the game that's being played right now. So instead of butting the bull, you have to find a way of how can I, like I said, put my resume in a format where I am hitting those keywords that I know this employer is looking for, because this is what they're going to be looking for when my resume is accepted by their electronic system or when I upload it to their database. They're scanning this for different keywords. So you want to make sure that you're going to have a data-driven resume. They're going to have those keywords. They're going to put you in a category that an employer wants to contact. So that's something that you want to look at as well. The world of recruiting, I can tell you some things about that. You're going to have to look at being brand yourself consistently, and that's something that I try to do on LinkedIn all the time, and that's something that you should also be doing in your particular industry. As an HR professional, I join a lot of HR groups, and I'm a part of a lot of groups that tend to what I do in the recruiting field. This should be the same with you. If you're in IT, you should be consistent with branding yourself in that IT industry. If you're in sales, if you're in marketing, if you're in engineering, wherever your industry is, you should be branding yourself in that industry and in some shape or form. I shouldn't hear about you just by looking at a resume. If I come across your name, I should be able to see some of the projects that you've done, some of the people that are in your network that are influencers or that are leaders in that particular industry. Because people do look at birds of a feather flock together. So you want to also have some type of brand that you're putting out that's going to be consistent to the job that you're trying to obtain. Next thing, you want to be social on and offline. And this is a big thing that I see. A lot of people just spend their time just applying to jobs online. And I work with people that keep a spreadsheet where I've applied to over 100 jobs or 200 jobs. Sometimes you do have to unplug and actually network with people on a face-to-face level. And if you're in a local area where you're looking locally, there shouldn't be any reason why you shouldn't be networking and going to local events that tailor to your industry. Whether it's associations that are in your industry, like if you're in IT or if you're in engineering, there are different associations in your particular demographic that, this is the group that all IT people join, or this is the group that all engineering people join, or this is, for marketing, this is the AMA, American Marketing Association. You should be a part of these organizations that you're networking with the decision makers in your industry, not only online, but you're actually having a meaningful relationship offline as well. Next thing you want to do is be transparent, and we actually spoke about that in the last slide, and that should be something that you should be able to represent not only through your resume but also through your accomplishments. And this is something that should be visible, as part of your brand and part of your profile. And the next one is actually to understand the market. And understand the market is to understand what the company needs. What are they trying to solve? And if you ever look at any of my past videos, and I know I sound like a broken recorder or a broken record when I say this, companies are looking to hire solutions. What solution are you going to bring to the table? And you have, in order to know the type of solution they need, you need to understand the market. Is your particular talent in demand? Is your particular talent or skill set dated? There's a lot of people walking around that have dated skills. They've been working for so long and they haven't done anything as far as continuing education or learned a new platform or learned a new process, and by the time that whatever happens that, for whatever reason they're caught themselves out of work, either they got laid off or they had to relocate or whatever the case may be, and here you are competing with people that's, that are working on the latest and greatest in the cutting edge. How are you going to compete with that? So you do want to understand your market, and you also want to understand their problem, because you're going to be the person they're going to hire to solve it. So you want to know, what are you going to do to be a solution? How are you going to bring value to the organization? And to do that, you do have to understand where the market is now and where it's going to go. And that's something that you have to be open to understanding. And again, the recruiting world is getting bigger, but at the same way, it's also, or the same sentence is also getting smaller. Companies are embracing technology. Recruiting industry is embracing technology, and they're focusing on different new ways to implement and find people with different types of talent. The recruiting is also becoming more data driven. The entire process, is actually making it more, like I said, is bringing in more technology and data instead of making this more of a personal thing. So you don't have time, and some people say, they put together an elevator speech and all that is good, but unless you can get their attention, unless you get that phone call for you to give that elevator speech, or you to quote unquote sell yourself, I like to say sell your solution, you have to have the right things in place for them to even reach out to you. And that means you do have to have a data-driven model or data-driven resume just to be able to get called nowadays for some of these bigger companies. Or you have to have some type of consistent branding in place where they're going to reach out to you because you're out there and you seem like a leader in that particular industry. First thing we're going to talk about is the first question that I received. I had someone that asked, which industries can I apply my degree in communications? Are there any free supplemental training that would be helpful towards becoming hired? That was the first question, and we're going to talk about that. You have a degree, so what? So does everyone else. A degree may get you the interview, but experience will get you hired. Passion works overtime, and you have to also have to somewhat build a buzz. Someone would rather, and I actually use this example, someone would rather employ a freelance graphic designer or anyone, I just use graphic designer for an example, with 3 years experience and actually has a client list or actually have people that can give recommendations for their work. They'd rather hire someone with that background versus a person with a master's degree with no experience. one simple way to get more experience in the industry, sometimes it's taking and being able to defend yourself or differentiate yourself from everyone else is to get the experience. And we're going to talk about on the next slide, getting a mentor during preceptorships and things of that nature. And you say communication degree, your communication degree really has nothing to do with it. And I think a degree is about as good as the person that holds it. What are you going to do with that degree is up to you. I know a lot of people that have degrees in areas they're not even working in. It's really about how are you going to market yourself out there in this competitive market with a degree or not. So that's something that you have to look at. Passion, when I say passion works overtime, is not just looking to get hired by anyone. Employers are able to tell if you're in it just to get a paycheck. They're able to tell this now, so when they get emails from job seekers looking to get hired and, they really don't indicate any type of passion about their work, those type of job seekers get overlooked. They can tell if this is something that you really want to do or it's just something I majored in or just something that I'm looking to pay the bills with. So you have to bring some type of passion to the table. And again, build a buzz. Whatever you're trying to do, start to build something around it. Whether if you're trying to stick in communications or you have a communications degree but you really want to pursue something else, you want to show that you can be a perfect example of the industry that you're trying to represent. Whether it's sharing articles of interest, networking with leaders in that industry, like I said, joining associations that's tailored to that industry. You want to be able to show that you're a leader in that industry. And believe it or not, perception is reality. What people see is what they believe. So you can have a communications degree, but if nothing about you screams communications, they're going to overlook you. So you definitely want to make sure that you're somehow building the buzz in any industry that you actually pursue. When your degree is not good enough, and I know that you asked about any type of enrichment courses or classes that you can take, there's definitely ways that you can do it yourself. And you also can look for a preceptorship, get a mentor, or also keep your employable skills relevant. And by doing this, doing it yourself is you want to create some type of goals that's going to bring you to your ultimate mission. What are you trying to do? When you look for classes, there's so many things online now that are free, webinars, workshops. You can go on YouTube or go on any other place that streams videos where they have classes that you can take for no cost, or you can check out your community college. Most community colleges are pretty cheap. So there's ways that you can get the education if you're looking for more of an education avenue. If you're looking for experience comes with actually doing or shadowing someone so you can get that exposure. I do recommend getting some type of mentor and preceptor in place. And if this question was coming from someone that recently graduated, I definitely will look into pairing up with someone that's already in the industry or looking for internships or entry-level positions that's going to expose you to the industry that you may want to enter, whether it's communications or anything else. And keeping your skills or your relevant skills or your employable skills relevant, you want to look at what is the industry calling for nowadays. Something that was required 3 or 4 years ago or something that was preferred may be required now. So you also want to look at what is someone in this industry using, what technical skills do they have. You want to know this because this is the stuff that they're going to be looking at to hire people. So if they're going to have this is what's required and you don't meet that requirement, again, you're going to be overlooked from someone that does have that particular skill set. So you definitely want to keep your skills employable, and you want to get a mentor or a preceptor. And that's something that you can do. Just find someone that you can either pick their brain on the industry, find out what the industry's like, see if you can sit in. Consulting companies love to do preceptorships and internships with people. So you definitely want to look at that as well. And I hope that was able to answer your question on that particular topic. Next question I have is, I will be relocating to Atlanta area in 6 months. Do you have any tips on securing an opportunity prior to my arrival? This is the best time to do it before you get there. So do I have any tips? I sure do. Relocation. The first thing you want to do is build up your Atlanta network. You're moving to Atlanta, so you definitely want to find people that are in your network, and we're not talking about friends and family and all that good stuff. We're actually talking about the network with employers and decision makers in that area. You should be doing more than connecting with these people. We're not talking about sending them the standard default note of, hey, join my network, or I would like to add you to my network. We're not talking about that. You want a call of action right now, because you're about to move. So you want a call of action. You should be engaging with each potential contact. Let them know your situation. If you applied for a job, inform them that you applied for a job. Preferably, you should be connecting with people in the companies or the applications that you put in with their organizations, and say, hey, I applied to your job, I'll be moving. Let them know your situation. And this brings to my second recommendation is, you should be setting appointments. This is a great time to be actually setting up times to talk with these people, even if it's a 15-minute conversation. But with setting appointments comes a solution. When you get these people on the phone, they want to know why they're taking 15 to 20 or 30 minutes out their day to talk to you. You have to come with something. So that goes to doing your homework and seeing, okay, if they're hiring for this particular job, I applied to this job, what is their problem? What can I bring as a solution? And this should be your this should be your talking piece right here. This should be your icebreaker, to get them on the phone. You're more, you'll have a better track record of setting an appointment with someone that has a need versus someone that you just want to, hey, how you doing? Saw the company, a company I like to work for, may not have any openings. Most decision makers would see that as a waste of time. So you definitely want to target people or organizations or even decision makers that have an opening that's going to tailor to your background that you can apply to, because then you have uncovered a problem. You have uncovered something that they do want to talk about, and maybe you can solve it. That's where you can set the appointment. Again, this goes back to doing your homework. You want to figure out the organization's demand or need, and you want to set up an appointment to talk about how you potentially can be a solution. You want to reveal if your skill set's in demand. You also want to look to see if you know anyone working in that organization already. That brings me to my third point. If you know someone that's working in that organization, have the no's lead to a yes. That's one thing that you need to do. Ask for any referrals or for anyone that may be looking for someone that can use your skill set. This means joining groups in that particular demographic, networking with people in that demographic, and if they say, hey, we're really not hiring, or better yet, hey, we already are interviewing for this job, get referrals. Who else can I speak to that may be looking for this particular skill or have a position like this open? Better yet, if you already know someone that's working for that organization, that should be your point of contact, because then they can give a warm introduction to the person that actually is making the hiring decision. So you do want to ask for referrals and have those no's lead you to a yes, one shape, way, or form or another. And I hope that was able to answer your question on that end. Okay, we're at 7:36. I think this was my last slide. I do open up the line for any other questions that you do have. My contact information is on the slide. My email, if you have any follow-up questions, you definitely can email me directly. If you want to talk to me, I do recommend that you set up a appointment. You can go online by click schedule a phone appointment. Click on that and it opens up my calendar. You actually can put it on the calendar because I'm away from my desk most of the day, so I probably will miss your call if you just call me out the blue. So that'd be best. That way I can set up the time and actually go from there. So I'm going to open up the line for any questions. If you have any questions, definitely answer. Shoot me shoot me a text at the bottom, and if you have any, if you want to verbally ask it, I'll unmute your line. Okay, I do see a question that came in. What is the best way to connect with someone that you do not know and have nothing in common to ask? If you do not know and have nothing in common to ask, hopefully if you're connecting with someone, whether it's pertaining to a job, you should find some type of common ground in which you're trying to connect. So if you are, like you said, like I had the previous question, someone was trying to relocate, and say that you absolutely do not know anyone in that area, this is the time to start joining groups, on LinkedIn, sharing articles and interests, creating a buzz, and getting people to actually engage either with your articles and interests or in the groups. And that way you can build some type of common ground when you reach out to these people. And that's one thing that people don't know about the groups. And I don't know if LinkedIn's changed it. I had to try it out. But I know if you don't have a premium account and you're trying to say, message someone that's like a third connection, and you're not, and it requires you to send email. And I know if you have a common group, like say somebody's a third connection away, but you're in the same group together, you're allowed to send them a direct message because you guys have a common group. So I've actually gone to a group and I've had people that were third connections away that through the group I'm able to still send them a direct message. So a lot of people don't know that you can do that. And that's why I join a lot of groups, because even though I may not be connected to these people, I may be in a group that has over 100,000 members, especially some of these HR groups. So even though I may not be connected to 100,000 people, I can still send messages to any one of those members in that group because we share that common group, if that makes sense. So even if you do not have anything in common to talk about and say, hey, I'm afraid to reach out to this person because I don't know them, find something that you can have in common, which means join a group that they're in, engage them with an article of interest, and that way, if all else fails, just reach out on a cold I recommend to do the other ones first, but if you do reach out, introduce yourself, make a warm introduction, and give them a reason why you're reaching out. They're more prone to connect with you when they know that you're reaching out because, either you want to talk about something, you have something that you want, to show them, or rather than just giving that, like I said, that default email that everyone gets when you push the connect button. They're more likely to push decline or ignore, but if you actually send something that's going to get them to, I'll talk to this person, or I'll help them out, or at least send some type of feedback, you're going to get a better response. Okay, I do have another question. Recently, I've been suggested to come in person and ask to speak with the hiring manager because it's better than submitting my resume online and it goes to the black hole. What do you think about this approach, which has been done in the 90s? I was also suggested to at least drop off my resume with the receptionist in case the hiring manager was not available without an appointment. Okay, and so basically you haven't been asked to come in, you're just kind of going to wing it and come in just off the strength of, getting your resume in front of the person directly. Before you would do that, if all is possible, because I don't want you to take depending on how far this is. I know some people, they put out a lot of time and energy, like you said, to drive to a location just to figure out, oh no, he's not in, and who knows if the receptionist is going to give him your resume. That's why they have a receptionist, and we actually call them gatekeepers, because they're supposed to, filter out all the unnecessary solicitation and all that type of stuff. So that being said, if you know who the actual hiring manager is, I would see if you could send them a direct email, or you can, if you haven't set up an appointment already, if you can reach out and set up an appointment and get the email. Emails are pretty simple to get. going to do a workshop on this. So if you know the company's URL, and you know who, if you know anyone's at the company, what I mean by that, if you Google the company and you can get anyone's email at the company, get the receptionist email, anyone's email at the company, you'll know the pattern that they're using, and more than likely all the staff, the entire staff is using that pattern unless you have someone with the exact same first or last name. So if you can figure that out, you can actually send him or her an email directly, which means you can attach your resume directly. So you'll know for sure that they received your resume. So I will actually look at, before making a drive out there and putting that, yourself in front of the person without an appointment, I would try sending them your resume directly in an email, as an attachment. That way you know that the person got it, and you're not depending on the receptionist, or you're not at the mercy of the receptionist to hopefully give him or her your resume, because who knows, she may not, or he may not do it. She may just, once you walk out, she may toss it. You'll never know if they got your resume, unfortunately. So I wouldn't put that power in that person's hands. I would just definitely try to find a way to make sure they received it directly by either sending a direct email. And like I said, find out that direct email, send it to them directly. Or better yet, if you can pick up the phone and ask to speak to that hiring manager, set up an appointment to have a face-to-face, or at least set up an appointment to shoot them your resume. Most people aren't going to say no. And I know that some people may come off as, they might say no, but most people are open about that. If you call and someone asks, hey, and they're really hiring for that position, and they're in need for that position, and they haven't hired anyone yet, they're not going to tell you no. Why would they shoot down someone that, hey, you may be the person that saves them from having to go through 500 resumes, Hey, why not shoot me your resume? I'll take a look at it. So that's something I would do as well. And I hope that was able to answer your question. Do I have any more questions tonight? I don't have any more questions. Well, we are at a quarter till. I hope I was able to answer everything. We do have workshops coming up. I have to update the website to put some of the new workshops in there. Also, in the future, what I'll be doing is actually have some on-demand workshops, because I know some of the schedules can be iffy with people and they aren't able to attend the live workshop. So what I'm going to start doing for some of these workshops that are tailored to a specific topic, is not a Q&A session, because we have workshops that are tailored just strictly to resume writing. We have some that are tailored strictly to interviewing, and we actually go beyond just scratching the surface. I'm going to record those and actually make them on demand. So I know a lot of people had some conflicts with the times that we suggest, and I know it's understandable. Many people have families and they can't make the live sessions. So I'm going to actually make these on demand videos, so you can actually watch them, when time permits. And if there's not any more questions tonight, got 15 minutes. I guess we're going to block out here early. When you do log off, there is a survey. Please take the survey. If you could take the survey, we can actually see what we can better, pretty much better or best, any topics that you'd like to hear about in the future, things that we can change, things we can improve on. Let us know if these Q&A sessions even help you at all. And we definitely would love to get your feedback, because we're pretty much doing this for everyone, and doing this for you, the job seeker. So we do this again every Monday, 7 to 8. We rarely miss a Monday. If we do, we send out an email, but we haven't missed one yet. So cross our fingers. So definitely we'll be here next week if you have any questions. Thank you so much for your time, and have a good night.